The knocking in room 9. When Min accepted the night shift job at an old hotel on the outskirts of the city, he thought it was just an easy way to earn some summer income in a quiet place. The hotel, romantically named Hoa Vien, Flower Garden, had actually been abandoned for years before being purchased by a private investor attempting to revive it. Min was hired as the night watchman, alternating shifts with an elderly guard during the day. The job was simple: check the security cameras, log entries in a notebook, do hourly patrols, and never enter room 9 on the 3rd floor. "That room is locked," said the guard, Mr. Toai. "Don't get curious. Something happened there before, but no one uses it now. Just pretend it doesn't exist." Min laughed it off, thinking the old man was superstitious. A locked room in a rundown hotel wasn't all that strange. But on his first night, at exactly 2:14 a.m., Min heard knocking. 3 knocks. Clear. Quick and cold. As if someone with bony fingers rapped rhythmically on wood. He left the security room, following the dimly lit hallway. The knocking came again, closer this time, from the 3rd floor. He climbed the creaky wooden staircase. The wind whistled through a cracked window at the end of the corridor. As he reached the 3rd floor, everything suddenly went unnaturally silent. No wind, no insects, just an eerie stillness in the air. Room 9 sat at the far end of the hallway, its dark wooden door marked with a rusted brass number 9. Min stood several meters away, listening. No more knocking. He turned to leave when, knock, knock, knock! Min spun around. The door to room 9 vibrated slightly, as if someone had just hit it. He shivered but approached slowly. His trembling hand reached for the knob, locked. But then he noticed faint scratches around the keyhole, as if someone had tried to pry it open with a sharp object. He quickly pulled his hand back. The next morning, Min told Mr. Toai, "I swear, I heard it clearly, Uncle. The knocking came from inside that room." Mr. Toai sighed, his face unreadable. "There was a girl who died in that room, 10 years ago. Suicide. People say she used to talk to someone in the mirror every night. Then one day, housekeeping found her body in the bathtub, blood all over the floor. But no knife. Nothing that could have caused the wounds." What about the security cameras? They blacked out that night. Whole system glitched. But ever since, every night, people hear knocking. They say her spirit never left. Min stayed silent, unsure whether to believe it or not. But from that night on, every evening at exactly 2:14, the knocking would come. Always 3 knocks, evenly spaced. Always from room 9. On the 4th night, Min decided to set up his phone to record the 3rd floor hallway. Using a tripod, he pointed the camera at room 9 and returned to the security room. In the morning, he reviewed the footage. For the first 10 minutes, nothing happened. But exactly at 2:14, knocking echoed, this time from the phone itself. The screen trembled slightly, as if something had brushed against the lens. Then, a pale hand emerged from the crack under the door of room 9, curling its fingers as if beckoning someone closer. Min dropped the phone in shock. From then on, every night became more terrifying. Min began dreaming of standing in front of a mirror, but in the reflection, it wasn't him. It was a girl with long hair, white skin, and no eyes or nose. Just a mouth stretched from ear to ear, smiling grotesquely. She whispered in his dream, "Don't leave me here. Open the door. I'm so cold." Min began avoiding mirrors altogether. He would cover the one in the staff washroom with a towel, and when he passed any reflective surface, he kept his gaze down. But the dreams persisted. Every night, the girl in the mirror called to him, sometimes begging, sometimes laughing, sometimes just staring with that grotesque smile that split her pale face wide open. One night, Min tried sleeping with the lights on and his headphones blasting music. It didn't help. He woke up drenched in sweat, with bloody handprints smeared across the inside of the security room's window on the 2nd floor. No one had access. He checked the CCTV. The camera watching the 2nd floor hallway had gone black from 2:13 to 2:15. Min decided to confront room 9. He waited until 2:10 a.m. and brought a flashlight, his phone, and a crowbar he found in the storage room. Every hair on his body stood up as he ascended to the 3rd floor. It was deathly silent, as always. He stood before room 9. Creak. The door wasn't fully closed. He hadn't noticed that before, just barely ajar, as if it were waiting. He reached for the knob with a trembling hand and pushed. The door swung open, the revealing darkness so thick it seemed to swallow his flashlight's beam. Dust coated every surface. The furniture was covered with white sheets, yellowed with time. The air smelled like mildew and something metallic, something like old blood. He stepped inside. There, across from the bed, stood a large antique mirror, its surface fogged over. As Min approached it, the temperature in the room dropped sharply. His breath came out in short clouds. His reflection stared back at him, eyes wide, face pale. But behind his reflection, there was something moving. A figure, long-haired, female, pale-skinned, standing right behind him, smiling. He spun around. Nothing. When he looked back at the mirror, the figure was still there. Only this time, she wasn't standing behind him. She was standing in front of the mirror, inside the glass. And she was knocking. Knock, knock, knock. He staggered back, heart pounding. The girl's lips moved. "Let me out." Min screamed and bolted from the room, nearly tripping over the crowbar in his panic. He didn't stop running until he locked himself inside the security room, breathing like he had run a marathon. That night, every single camera went static from 2:13 to 2:15. The knocking continued every night. The next day, Min called the hotel owner. "There's something seriously wrong here. You never told me about the death in room 9 or the girl in the mirror." There was a long pause. "I don't know what you're talking about," the man said coldly. "There's no room 9 on the 3rd floor." "What? I've been there. I've opened it." "I had the floor plans drawn myself. Rooms end at 8. Min was silent, his hands trembling. The call ended abruptly. He rushed to the hotel's front desk and rummaged through the blueprints. Sure enough, the 3rd floor showed only 8 rooms. Room 9 wasn't there. He went upstairs again. Where room 9 had once been, there was only a wall. No door. No number. Nothing but smooth, painted surface, as if there had never been a door at all. Min's legs gave out. He collapsed to his knees in front of the wall, panting. He wasn't losing his mind. He had video proof. He scrambled back to the security room to retrieve the footage from his phone, only to find the file had corrupted. All his recordings from the 3rd floor were blank. The girl had erased everything. That night, Min locked the security room door, set up 2 phones, and turned all the lights on. He refused to fall asleep. But at exactly 2:14 a.m., the power went out. His screens turned black. His flashlight sputtered and died. And from behind the door, in the dark, knock, 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 knock. Then a voice. "You saw me. Now you're mine." The door creaked open by itself. Cold air swept in. And standing there, in the corridor, was the girl. Her hair covered most of her face. Her hospital gown was soaked in dried blood. Her hands dangled unnaturally, and where her eyes should have been, only dark, oozing holes. She smiled. Min couldn't move, couldn't scream. His limbs were frozen with terror. She reached out, and everything went black. Min awoke on the cold tile floor of the security room, his body drenched in sweat, his clothes clinging to his skin as though he had been submerged in water. The lights had returned. The cameras were functional again. His phone lay beside him, screen cracked, battery drained. At first, he thought maybe it had been a dream, a hallucination brought on by sleep deprivation. But then he saw it. On the small security desk mirror, written in something thick and rusty, "Let me out." The words dripped slowly down the surface. He stumbled back, his mind spiraled. He packed his things, wrote a rushed resignation note, and left. Just like that. Or at least, he tried to. When he stepped outside, something was wrong. The streets were empty. Not early morning empty, but dead. The trees weren't swaying. No birds. No cars. Even the air felt wrong. Still, like a photograph. He pulled out his backup phone to call a friend, but there was no signal. Not even emergency services. When he turned to look behind, the hotel was different. The paint on the walls had peeled back decades. Ivy climbed up the sides. Windows were shattered. The neon sign no longer glowed, only twisted metal with one letter hanging loose, clinking in a wind he couldn't feel. He had never left. Min wandered through the empty streets for hours before he ended up, inexplicably, back at the hotel's entrance. Every path led him there, alleys twisted, turns bent back onto themselves. It was a maze with one inevitable destination. The hotel had him. With nowhere left to go, Min re-entered the building. Inside, it was darker than before. The air was heavy, each breath like inhaling water. Footsteps echoed in a rhythm that didn't match his own. And then, on the wall where room 9 had once been, the door was back. Brand new, clean, shining brass 9, freshly mounted. It wanted him to go in. He approached, compelled by something older than fear. The handle was warm to the touch. The door opened effortlessly. Inside was no longer just a room. It was an abyss. The walls stretched and pulsed like living tissue. The mirror still stood at the far end, but it was now towering, reaching the ceiling, rippling like water. Inside it wasn't a reflection, but a world, another dimension of darkness and distortion. 1,000 whispering voices lured him closer. And in the center of it all, the girl. She stood barefoot on a floor of blood, her arms limp, her eyes weeping shadows. But she wasn't smiling this time. She looked at Min with, "They trapped me here," she said softly. "I was like you. I worked here." "What? Are you?" Min asked, barely able to speak. "Not a ghost. Not yet. A memory twisted until it can't forget. The mirror showed me who I was, and then it kept me." Behind her, other faces began to emerge from the mirror. Dozens, maybe hundreds, all twisted and pale, silently screaming from within the glass. "You opened the door, so now it wants you too." Min stepped back, but the door had vanished. The room began to close in, the walls constricted. The mirror grew, reaching out like liquid claws. "Run," the girl whispered. "But you? Run!" Min turned and sprinted. The floor shifted beneath him like a throat swallowing him whole. Hands burst from the walls, grabbing at his legs. Screams rose from the cracks in the floor. Just before the mirror could engulf him, he saw something on the ground. The crowbar. He dove, grabbed it, and turned to face the mirror. The girl stood inside, her expression calm. "Break it," she mouthed. With everything he had, Min swung. The crowbar shattered the glass with a scream that wasn't his. 1,000 voices shrieked as the mirror exploded into shards of smoke and shadow. Wind roared from the broken frame like a hurricane, sucking everything, the voices, the blood, the whispers, into itself. And then, silence. Min awoke again. This time, he was outside. The morning sun warmed his skin, birds chirped, a gentle breeze danced through the trees. The hotel was no longer there. In its place was an empty lot surrounded by rusted fencing. A weathered sign read, "Site closed. Do not enter." His phone had signal. The date was 3 days later. He stumbled to a nearby diner, called a friend, and was taken home. He never told anyone what happened. Not truly. He said he got lost, had a breakdown. People believed him. Eventually, the nightmares faded. But sometimes, just after midnight, when he passes a mirror too quickly, he catches a glimpse of her, watching, waiting. And when he closes his eyes at night, deep in the silence, he sometimes hears it. Knock, knock, knock. The 3 a.m. bell. Bao Lac village was an isolated place nestled deep in the misty northern mountains of Vietnam. No cell signal, no internet, and only one dirt road led in, winding, slippery, and frequently blocked by landslides. Outsiders rarely visited, and the villagers almost never left. Lin was an archaeology student assigned there for a summer field study. Her goal: document ancient spiritual practices and record local folklore from remote ethnic communities. Bao Lac was infamous for its strange customs, particularly how no one ever woke another person at night, and no one was allowed outside after 3 a.m. "There's a demon that guards the bell," said old Mrs. Tu, her host. "If you hear it, don't go out. No matter who calls, cries, or begs, never open the door." Lin smiled politely. Classic superstition, exactly the kind of thing she was here to document. She scribbled in her notebook, "Villagers believe a spirit rings a bell at night to lure the living outside." On her first night, Lin slept soundly in the old wooden house. The walls creaked with wind, and the tile roof leaked cold air. At exactly 3 a.m., she woke to the sound of a bell. Clang, clang, clang. 3 chimes, long and echoing through the hills. She checked her watch, exactly 3. She pressed her ear against the window, straining to hear. No voices, no dogs barking, no wind. Just one thing, hidden in the ringing. "Open the door. It's cold. Let me in." Lin's skin prickled with dread. She stood, switched on her flashlight, and swept its beam toward the window. Outside, a figure stood motionless in the yard. It had no face, smooth, pale as wax. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Lin screamed and collapsed onto the floor. The next morning, she told Mrs. Tu. The old woman didn't look surprised. "If you've seen it, best you stop asking questions. Everyone here has seen it. It won't harm you, as long as you don't answer it. But what about the bell? Where does it come from? It's the temple bell. Whenever someone dies an unjust death, the bell rings at that hour. But our temple burned down in 1975. There's been no bell for decades. Lynn was silent. If the temple was gone, where was the sound coming from? She decided to investigate. Among Mrs. Two's old family photos, Lynn found a picture of the original temple, taken before it burned. Behind the main hall stood a massive bronze temple bell, taller than a man. At its base was an inscription in ancient Sino-Vietnamese script. The bell guides the lost. If souls do not pass on, the bell does not fall silent. One afternoon, Lynn discovered a hidden trail behind the hill, leading to the ruins. Amid shattered bricks and collapsed wood beams, the bell still stood, tilted, rusted, but intact. She reached out and touched it. Clang. A deep sound rang out, rolling through the forest. Moments later, a second chime echoed back. Same tone, same pitch from somewhere deeper in the jungle. That night, the bell rang earlier, 2:59 a.m. Lynn sat up. Outside her window were multiple figures, lined in rows across the yard. They faced away from the house, swaying gently in rhythm with the bell. One of them turned around. His face was streaked with dirt and dried blood, eyes white and unseeing. He walked slowly toward her window, lips barely moving. "I was a teacher who came here before you. They never let me leave," Lynn screamed. By the time Mrs. Two rushed in, the yard was empty. No footprints, no trace. Only one thing remained, a long silver-white hair caught on the window frame. The next day, Lynn walked back to the ruined temple. This time, she brought a voice recorder, a camera, and several offerings, incense, fruit, and a small bottle of rice wine. She wasn't religious, but something in her told her it was better to be respectful now. When she reached the bell, it stood as it had the night before, still, leaning slightly, crusted with moss. The surrounding forest felt silent and damp, as if it were holding its breath. Lynn placed the offerings on a flat stone and lit 3 sticks of incense. As the smoke rose, she bowed 3 times and whispered, "I'm just here to learn. If anyone can hear me, I want to help." The bell trembled. Then it rang. Just once. The ground beneath her shivered. Her recorder clicked to life. Though she hadn't touched it, the camera flashed by itself. And in that moment, Lynn heard a voice, not in her ears, but directly inside her skull. "You woke me. Now you must listen." She blacked out. She came to some time later, lying at the edge of the forest with the bell no longer in sight. The incense had burned out. The offerings were gone. She checked her camera. One photo had been taken. It showed the bell, but not as it looked in the ruins. In the photo, it was whole, hanging inside a fully restored temple, surrounded by people in old-style robes, their faces blurred beyond recognition. At the base of the bell, a woman stood with her back to the lens, long white hair trailing to the floor. Lynn zoomed in. The woman was barefoot, and blood was dripping from her fingertips. She turned off the camera, trembling. That night, Lynn locked her door and windows. She lit incense again. The room filled with its sharp, woody scent. But at 3 a.m., the bell rang again, this time 7 times. Clang, clang. Each chime was slower, heavier, like the tolling of a funeral bell. Then came the whispers. "You saw us, you spoke to us, you belong now." The doorknob twisted. Scraping sounds came from outside, a slow, dragging step like someone walking barefoot through gravel. Then, knock. Not polite, not human. It sounded like bones tapping the wood. "Let me in. I remember you." Lynn didn't move. Her whole body was frozen, soaked in sweat. She clutched the incense burner like it was a weapon. After what felt like hours, the knocking stopped. And when she finally gathered the courage to peek through the window, she saw it again. A figure walking into the mist, long white hair trailing on the ground, leaving behind bloody footprints that quickly disappeared. She tried to leave the village the next day, but the road was gone. Literally. The path she had taken to arrive was now a chasm, as if an earthquake had split the mountain open. No one else in the village was surprised. Mrs. Two just said, "Sometimes it won't let people go." Lynn realized she was trapped. She began to study the bell, the photo, the legend. In an old village book kept in the shrine, she found a page written in faded ink. Those who awaken the bell must guide the dead to rest or take their place. It was a curse. The villagers had once held a ritual every few years, ringing the bell to summon wandering souls, then guiding them to peace with offerings and chants. But after the temple burned, no one performed the rites again. The dead had piled up, lost, angry. And now, Lynn had reawakened the bond. She would have to finish the ritual or be claimed by the bell herself. That night, she prepared. She memorized the chant. She wrote the names of the forgotten, the missing villagers, the lost travelers, the teacher from her vision. She walked to the bell at midnight, dressed in white, carrying the old offerings and her recorder. The forest was waiting. She stood before the bell and bowed again. "I will finish what was abandoned. Let the dead rest." Then she struck the bell 7 times. From the trees, they came. Not violently, not screaming, but slowly, swaying, drifting like smoke in human form. Each soul passed before her. She spoke the name she had written, then placed a flower at their feet. The last soul to come was the woman with white hair. Lynn felt her heart race, but she didn't look away. "You remember me," the woman whispered. "You are the first to see me clearly in decades." "Who are you?" Lynn asked. "The one who rang the bell too long, the one who forgot to rest." She stepped closer. "But you may still leave." And with that, the woman bowed, turned, and walked into the bell, dissolving into mist. The bell rang once more, then silence, and finally, peace. Lynn collapsed after the final spirit vanished. Her head throbbed. The air was still thick with the smell of incense, but something had changed. The forest was no longer watching her. The silence was no longer heavy. She had done it. She had performed the rite. She had freed them. When she looked up at the old bell, she noticed something strange. The moss had fallen away. The bronze gleamed faintly in the moonlight. And the inscription that once read, "The bell guides the lost. If souls do not pass on, the bell does not fall silent." Now read, "The bell sleeps. Let no one wake it again." Lynn backed away slowly. She returned to the village, half expecting to see more spirits or hear that dreadful knocking. But instead, the wind stirred gently through the leaves. Dogs barked in the distance. A rooster crowed too early. The curse had lifted. The next morning, the villagers looked different. You could see it in their eyes. The way they walked, how they greeted one another. It was subtle, but unmistakable. For the first time in decades, the dread had lifted from their shoulders. Mrs. Two hugged Lynn, something she had never done before. "You did it," she said simply. "They've stopped calling. I didn't hear the bell last night. No one did." Lynn smiled wearily. "I think it's over." But deep down, she wasn't sure, because in her mind, she kept hearing that final voice, the woman with the white hair whispering, "You may still leave? Still. Not should, not must, still." She tried the road again. This time it was open. The landslide had cleared. The trees weren't twisted. It looked exactly as it had the day she arrived. When she passed the stone marker at the village entrance, her phone buzzed to life for the first time in days. Full signal. Dozens of missed calls and messages poured in. She was back in the world, back in time. She should have felt relief. But as the bus carried her away from Baulak, Lynn couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed her. She glanced in the window's reflection and saw white hair trailing behind the seat. Back at university, Lynn finished her field report, all 83 pages, complete with photos, transcriptions, and recordings. But she'd never submitted it. Her professors said she'd gone above and beyond, and they urged her to publish it. She refused. She deleted the audio, burned the notebook. But no matter what she did, every night at exactly 3 a.m., she would wake to a faint, distant chime. Not loud, not near, just a whisper of bronze echoing through her bones. Clang, 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 always 3 times. And sometimes she would hear her name, not shouted, not screamed, just spoken softly, as if someone stood just behind her ear. Lynn? She moved dorms. She stopped using mirrors. She never went near temples again. But one night, she received an anonymous email from an address she didn't recognize. No message in the body, just an attachment, a photo. It was a selfie, taken while she slept. In the background, barely visible behind the curtain, was a figure with no face and long white hair. Files. Weeks later, a group of researchers from the university tried to visit Baulak after hearing rumors about Lynn's disappearance from class, but they never found the village. The road led nowhere. Locals in nearby towns said there hadn't been a village by that name for at least 40 years. They found an old bell in a collapsed temple, half buried in the jungle. It was broken in half, and the inscription had faded completely. But when they examined the audio files from a handheld recorder found nearby, the final entry was a whisper. "You woke us. You rang the bell. Now it is your turn to answer it." The end.